rolling. We got Aaron Wellman back on the podcast, and we've been talking for the past 10 minutes. Let's just keep going. Why, Aaron? By the way, just a little background. Aaron's team was 6-1 this year. You know, obviously they played less games this year because of COVID. They went to a bowl game, and they crushed it this year. They barely lost to Ohio State. What were their ranking this year? What'd they end up getting?
Well, they went to the college football playoffs and won, right? They played for the national championship. It seems like, you know what, that was about 2 months ago. And it seems like a long time ago. But they had a great year. I mean, they went undefeated regular season, went to the playoffs. So good football team. Great football team. Yeah,
and you guys crushed it. But you're still waking up at 3:30 in the morning. What the hell? What are you doing?
I think it's kind of the default setting, unfortunately. The only difference is now that, you know, like Brooks said, the PhD's done. Why are you still waking up at 3:30? I think that's my default, I think. But the problem is now that my 16-year-old and 14-year-old are online learning. And I'm not sure, that might be an oxymoron, online learning, because I'm not sure what they're learning. All I know is I'm doing math until about 10:30 or 11 o'clock every night with my kids. So that's what's hurting me more than the early wake up. It's the sophomore geometry and trigonometry at night. So, but other than that, we're doing good.
3, 4, 5 right triangles, 45, 45, 90. Is that what you're going over now?
Pythagorean theorems, you name it.
X root 2, bro.
Isosceles, trapezoids. So
what do you do then, Aaron, when you wake up 3:30 in the morning? What's going on then?
I get to work as fast as I can. I'm out of the house in about 12 minutes in the car on the way to work. And then, you know, I always have things that, you know, whether it's articles pulled up, just things that I want to get done to start my day. Most time it's reading. My staff will get together. If we have a 6 o'clock lift group, we'll meet at 5. And just kind of go over what the day looks like, the flow of the room. We're a morning practice team. So consequently, we have larger groups in the mornings. And so the organization, that's important. So when the players come in, we do have it organized, and there's not a lot of standing around, and we can flow from one exercise to another. And then we've got a handful of guys who are returning from off-season surgery. They have modifications, and they all have individual work cards when they come in. But inevitably, you know, to get all the staff on the same page and make sure that we present an organized plan to our players when they come in. And so consequently, if there's a staff meeting at 5, I want to be in an hour before that to organize my day and my thoughts and to get anything done that we want to get done. In the winter, we went right from our groups were about an hour and 45 minutes apart. So consequently, we went from one group immediately to the next group, immediately to the next group. And so once we start, you know, 5:45 rolls around, we're going 100 miles an hour until those groups are done.
I mean, you're in the flow of this, right? And you've been doing it for years when I first met you, and you were getting up at that time because you was doing an hour of PhD or something like that every day. When the alarm goes off now, what's the first thing that goes through your head? Are you like, or is it just now, do you get up straight away and your head don't even get the chance to get going?
Typically I wake up before it goes off. I mean, it'll be like, I usually wake up 5-10 minutes before it goes off. And typically I'll just get up, turn off the alarm and get up and roll. Very rarely am I sleeping all night and then my alarm goes off and I'm out of bed. So I'm usually, all right, I've got another hour. I got 40 minutes, 10 minutes. I might as well go, you know? But unfortunately, and that's not, and I don't say that, I'm not proud of that.
Yeah.
But that's just how it is. And so, in like Brooks said, I mean, this has been years. It's been years doing this. Right. So, every once in a while I'll get a little fatigued and maybe sleep in another half hour on a weekend. And outside of that, same schedule.
When do you train yourself?
Well, like I said, we're a morning practice team. So we typically get all of our training done in the morning. We'll follow that up with any date entry we have, staff meetings, but typically 3 or 4 in the evening, I'll train. And then on weekends, I'll get it done early. Saturday usually at 4:30 in the morning. Then Sunday I'll go. I'll do some cardio usually at 5 in the morning. Typically every Sunday I'm on a Zoom call from 7:30 to 9, just on a guy in Australia and a guy in Argentina. We jump on a Zoom call and discuss training, discuss a lot of things. And so I've usually done Sundays for that Zoom call at 7:30.
And you're training at the college,
Yeah,
gym?
I come in the facility. You know, we weren't allowed to for a time there last summer. And but now we're allowed to, and we just kind of work around there's all of the sports here. It's interesting because all of the fall sports got their seasons postponed with the exception of football. So consequently, at the university, every sport is in season right now, except for football. So our facility's jam-packed most of the day. So we're just cautious and respectful of those teams. They're in the middle of their seasons and working around them and staying out of their way. So later in the evenings or early in the mornings are always better.
What are you doing for your workouts? For you personally, not for your team, for you.
Yeah. Right now, I mean, I think it's easy to get in a rut, and I think it's easy. And I change mine as the flow of our team's phase goes. So in other words, if I'm right in the middle of winter condition, I know that I'm on my feet for 5-6 hours straight, that I'm going to be jumping and demonstrating lifts and demonstrating jumps. And so that may change the workout. But right now, typically I'll work out 5 days a week, 2 upper body days, 2 lower body days. Then kind of whatever I want to do on a Saturday, whatever I feel like doing, then I'll do a couple of days of cardio. And that'll change, right? Like when we get to summer conditioning, I may do. And in fact, I was just, before we got on, I was just reading an Ellington Darden article. You guys are familiar with Ellington Darden, kind of like the father of high intensity training.
Oh yeah.
Just some brief total body workouts, so right in the heat of it, if I've got 5-6 lift groups a day and we're just rolling for 10 hours, that does take a toll on you, right? As a coach. And so I may go just to more of a 45-minute total body, 3-4 day a week training routine. But right now I'm going 5 days a week, 2 cardio days a week. We just got into spring ball, so we don't have the players quite as much. It gives us a little more time to do some things, but that's what I'm doing right now.
I love this iron discipline from you, man. Ever since the first time I met you, it was like, well, how are you? You're like almost like a robot, but you're just such a nice dude too on the side too. So I don't know how you managed to combine them two together. Because if I was operating on 4 hours sleep repeatedly, I would be a prick.
Well, I mean, you do get run down, right? I've always thought this. I've always admired people who, you have a strong work ethic and are disciplined, but I've always admired people who have the ability to suffer. Like, there's just something about that draws me to that. Just someone who, I know it's tired. I know you're tired, and I understand you've gotten 2 hours rest, but you're supposed to train today. And so we train. Or you're supposed to, I know you're hungry, but you're supposed to eat a chicken breast and some broccoli this meal, so you eat the chicken breast and broccoli. Just that iron will, the discipline, the structure, ability to suffer is kind of use my terminology for it. I've always admired that in people. And I think that's an important quality to have. It's not for everyone. I get that. And that doesn't mean you're better than anyone else because you're like that. Just, sure. I think it's just a personality trait more than a choice.
Was you like that also when you were a kid, like going through high school, college yourself?
I was, I don't know, probably not as much in high school. I don't know. That's a great question. In college, I was always a morning person. I always made sure I got breakfast every day in college, even on the weekends. I may go back to bed after that, but I always made sure I was up and had breakfast, and I never missed a workout and things like that. So probably structure, I have a 16-year-old son, and he's much the same way, whether that's nature or nurture, probably a little bit of both, but he's much the same way, very structured, very disciplined, kind of has a just a lot of willpower, for lack of a better term. He's much the same way.
So in the mornings, do you do any caffeine? Do you do any coffee? Do you do any pre-workout?
I do a cup of coffee on the way to work in the morning. Yeah. And I mean, I probably, there are days I have more caffeine than I should have, right? Because I may work out in the afternoon and may need another cup of coffee, whatever it is. But I'm not a big energy drink throughout the day kind of guy. I'll do a cup of coffee. I'll grab that in the morning. It's already brewed when I come down, put it in the cup, and I'm out the door. and there's not much time for that, right? Like I said, our workouts are kind of back to back. And so once we start, we're going. So there's not a lot of time to kind of relax and recharge. And we just kind of, once you start, you just keep rolling.
I'm not surprised to hear that you don't drink energy drinks, because that's not part of your diet schedule, I'm sure. I mean, you mentioned that you're now into carb cycling. What does that look like now? How's your day of eating?
Yeah, carb cycling is, and I've done this, like I said, we've had several conversations, right? I don't know why people are always so fascinated with my schedule, but they seem to be. So the carb cycling, I've done it once a year. I'll take at least 12 weeks. Now I'm pretty structured year round, but once a year I'm going to drop the hammer for 12 weeks. I'm going to see how much body fat I can lose. And, I'll do it some like towards the end of this, it's going to be virtually no carbs because I'm 46 years old, as every year seems to get a little bit tougher, a little bit longer to lose the fat, a little more suffering on the back end, which I like, which is kind of why, which I do it every year. But carb cycling is essentially, this is an old time kind of bodybuilding, like traditional carb cycle where you have a high day, a medium day, and a low day. And so right now I go high, medium, low, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Thursday, I go back to high carb day. Friday's a medium day. And then my low days, then I go Saturday, Sunday, low carb days. And I have it all on my computer, every meal, but it's about high day. I'm getting about 2,700 calories. My medium day, about 2,300. My low day, about 1,900 calories. And the carbs are between 50 and 75 low day. On the high day, they're more 350 to 400 grams of carbs. And so the constant cycling of those and the constant, not just the carbohydrates, but also subsequently the calories that are associated with those carbohydrates, right? Protein stays fairly the same, fat stays fairly the same. So we're manipulating carbohydrate intake, and with that, obviously caloric intake on the high carb days.
So do you have special workouts that you're putting on for a high carb day, medium and low, based on like the energy available?
I work out. So the high carb day for me is the hardest because I just don't enjoy eating that much. Like my first day, Monday, I didn't get all my food in. I'm like, I just can't eat all this rice. You know what I mean? But I will get it in tomorrow. But I work out Monday, Tuesday. Those are high, medium day. Wednesday's a low carb day. Wednesdays I'll do cardio. Thursdays and Fridays will go again high, medium. I'll do upper and lower again those days. And Saturday and Sunday are low carb days. And I know that a lot of people don't enjoy the low carb. I operate really well on low carbs to no carbs really. And never feel a drop in energy, never feel like I can't get a good workout. So I enjoy the low carb days the most. And that's all weekend. So, but I'm working out on essentially 2 of the high days, 2 of the medium days, and 1 of the low days. The other days I'm doing cardio, some type of cardio activity.
So why cycle? I mean, I've known you since you were going carnivore for a long time. I mean, why cycle? Do you feel like that gets you to a lower body fat percentage than just going pure, carnivore?
I have gotten a lower body fat percent with carb cycling. Carbohydrates in and of themselves aren't evil. They're just easy to abuse, right? It's easy to overeat carbohydrate and thereby overeat calories. It's much harder to overeat protein sources, chicken breast, fish. It's hard to overeat those things. They're more satiating. They take longer to prepare. They take longer to eat. And so I have gotten very low on carb cycling. I think the kind of carnivore type diet, I use that more when I'm just I may be going through a strength phase, or I just want to be able to eat, not track things and not gain body fat. And I think that's good because it's an appetizing plan, right? It's satiating. It's hard to overeat. And so if I'm not going to count macronutrients, then I may just go on a more of a carnivore-ish plan where I'm really eating no carbohydrates, and it's primarily eggs and some meats. But if I'm including carbs in my diet, I feel like I need to track things because it's easy for me to undereat as well. But it's also easy to overeat. And if I can manipulate carbs, I always feel like I have another lever to pull if I'm carb cycling. Like I can I can start off at a higher carbohydrate intake and pull the lever. I can go a little bit lower. I can include, instead of 3 low days a week, I can include 4. I can go no high days and just do medium and low days. So seems to be always another lever to pull, which I think if you're doing something for 10 to 12 weeks, I think that's important. Whereas carnivore, okay, I can pull the fat lever. I can decrease my total fat intake, but I can't really manipulate carbs because I'm not taking any carbs. And that's just, I mean, personally for doing it, and I've done this once a year for, we're talking 23, 24 years. So I've got diets from 2000 with hydrostatic body fat measures. And one thing I do find is on a 0 carb approach, my sleep is better. My blood pressure is always lower. My resting heart rate's always lower, regardless of amount of cardio done. So I do like that. So if I'm not, like, when I get done with these 12 weeks, I'll go to probably the whole summer, just a 0 carb, more of a meat-based, egg-based plan.
So the progression then, so where you've started with your macros now, every week, will that sort of, with a high, medium, low, just drop by 10% or something like that, and until the end of the 12 weeks when it's more or less no carb?
Yeah, I'll drop it down every week. It just depends on the progress, right? Like if my energy is really low and I'm dropping way too fast, I may stay at this level until, I always think the diet with the diet, you should eat as much as possible and still lose body fat. Right. And so that's kind of the plan. How much can I get away with and still drop body fat? When body fat stalls, then there has to be another lever to pull besides go from 2000 to 1900, from 1900 to 1800 calories. And so I feel like the carb manipulation allows me to do both of those things. So my plan is to stay at this level for about 2 weeks, then decrease it 2 more weeks. And then, like I said, it's going to be, I know by week 10, I won't be happy where I'm at. I'm just going to say, forget it, no carbs. And I'm going to do that for the last 3 weeks and see how low I can get. That's how it always ends. So, I think it ends like that more now because I'm older, right? And it's just tougher. When I was 25, it was fairly straightforward. When you're 46, it's hard for me to lose the fat and keep the muscle, right? That's the struggle is we don't want to lose muscle as we age, but we also want to be lean. And I think doing it once a year allows me to stay leaner the rest of the year. If you spend 25% of the year cutting as much body fat as you can, you tend to keep it off throughout the years a little bit better.
I agree with that. I think that's a good idea. Like trying to get as low with the body fat percentage as possible, at least once a year. That way, at least you always have that starting point to, ruin.
Right.
But well, in my case, ruin. But I was laughing this whole time, thinking like, yeah, I do carb cycling. Some days I'll have Cuban Pete's. Some days I'll have Gaffel Grill. And the Gaffel Grill is like a chicken Caesar salad with a double bacon cheeseburger, but I won't eat the bun, so it's low carbs. Right. But so I did 100 days of strict carnivore. Carnivore. And when you were saying it's very difficult to overeat protein sources, I just couldn't stop laughing because, man, when I wanted to gain weight on carnivore, I gained weight on carnivore. I would have probably 3. All I had to do was introduce mozzarella. That's all I had to do was just start introducing cheese to the carnivore diet. And I don't know if that's a yay or a nay with the hardcore carnivore folk. What's the consensus on that?
Well, I think the hardcore carnivore people, they eat meat and they meat only, and they do. It's mostly red meat, probably, just because it's hard to get the caloric to meet the calorie needs on fish. Mm-hmm. But I think they do include. I think most people will do red meat, combination of seafood, turkey, chicken, but as long as it's meat. And some people throw in. Who knows? Like, are there really rules to this? Like, is it cheese? Is it eggs? I don't know. I think it's everyone. I don't know if there's a strict carnivore code, but carnivore to me means meat.
Yeah,
you're a meat eater, but certainly you can gain weight on it. At the end of the day, it's energy in and energy out. That's still part of those thermodynamics we can't erase. That's still there. It's just it's harder to eat. If you sit down and eat a pound of beef, most people aren't hungry any longer. Now, could you eat more if you tried? Certainly. But if you eat a plate of pasta, you could still probably eat some garlic bread. You could still, and 2 hours later, you may be ready to eat again. I found when you eat anything that's higher fat, higher in protein, that it keeps us full a little bit longer. And it's, look, I'm not advocating any type of diet, but so you gained weight on the carnivore.
Oh, I could have, but so
could.
I got down right now. I'm back up to 203. I took my fat progress picture 2 days ago when I was at 203. This morning I was down to like 200-ish, but I'm going to hop back on the carnivore diet where I went from 206 down to 186. Now I was at 186 for a day. That was the lowest I got. I usually hovered around 189, but that was the lightest I've been and in shape in years. And that was when I was doing my 100-hour weeks where it was a nightmare. You know, I had school on the weekends and I didn't have any days off. So I had tons of energy to work out.
Yeah.
I had the energy that I needed to work out on the carnivore diet, where now I might be doing 60-hour weeks, like nothing crazy, but my days are structured in a way where I'll have my NFL crew. I'll have my morning group, which is high school and college kids from 6 a.m. to like 8 a.m. And then my NFL crew goes straight through from 8 a.m. They'll blend right into about 1 p.m. and I'm nonstop. 12 o'clock, 1 p.m. I'm nonstop. So by the time that's over, and I don't do caffeine, I don't do any pre-workout. I haven't had caffeine in probably 4 years now. I don't know. I forget what it is. 4 or 5 years maybe now at this point. And I love not having caffeine, but man, not having that energy after at 12 o'clock, like that pick me up would be really, really nice for me right now. But when eating carbs, I'm exhausted. If I was still on the carnivore diet right now, I'm pretty sure I'm going to make that switch. I just started doing my food orders now again. And I'm just going to, now that the weather's getting nice, I'm going to stop eating like a slob and go back to probably maybe try another 100 days of carnivore, only make it carnivore-ish and have only vegetables.
Yeah.
I'm going to do the blood work before and after. I didn't do it last time, but
yeah, I mean, I have a hard time, you know, like, is the strict carnivore, is it sustainable long-term? I think it's sustainable. I think it can be done. I don't think we know the health implications of completely excluding certain groups. I certainly think it's okay to do in short spurts and depending on what your, you know, if it's an elimination diet or whatever your goals are. How was your heart rate, blood pressure, sleep when you were doing it?
Phenomenal.
Yeah.
Phenomenal. My resting heart rate was low, but my body weight was lower. When my body weight goes up, my resting heart rate goes up. Like that's just how it goes.
Sure.
However, and my stress was through the roof. My stress towards the end was horrible between trying to finish school. I had my identity stolen. That was a fucking nightmare. And then I also got in a really bad car accident. So the end, like my numbers were all skewed, but I mean, I was sustaining 100-hour weeks with 0 days off on carnivore diet for 100 days. No fucking, like, I was stressed, but not much of a problem. Like I was able to do it. I was able to figure the shit out. It wasn't bad.
Did you limit yourself to a certain window of time for feeding, or did you just whenever you're hungry?
So whenever I wanted to eat, I pretty much ate, but I couldn't eat whenever I wanted because I either was in class or I was in clinic or I was in session. And I was traveling back and forth to the Hamptons, which is a 2.5-hour trip. So you can't eat on those. That was pretty routine. Then I also was traveling back and forth to school, which was a half-hour each way where you're not allowed to eat in school. And if you're in clinic sessions were 4 hours long a piece. Couldn't eat during clinic. So it was like, you know, I was stuck, but I'm very, very strict about not eating past 5 p.m.
Yeah.
I don't eat past 5 p.m.
That's important. Yeah, that's important, I think. Or
especially with protein.
Right. At least within 3 hours of you cutting it off 3 hours before your normal bedtime, 3 to 4 hours, I think is helps with sleep for most people. I know it negatively impacts my sleep if I eat too late.
3 to 4 hours. I will give you 3 hours if it's a vegan meal, vegan low protein meal, because it's easy to digest. Meat, man, red meat is going to take energy to digest. Your resting heart rate's going to be too high. I cannot find anyone that will eat within 3 hours and not have an elevated resting heart rate by 5-10%. In which case,
no, I can't. I'm fine doing that. I can
Yeah.
have a pound of meat at dinner and my resting heart rate will be very low. But if I have carbohydrates, a decent amount of carbohydrates at dinner, I know my resting heart rate is going to be 10 to 20% higher.
So you can eat red meat before dinner, before bed, and go right to bed, and your resting heart rate won't be any higher.
No, I never eat before bed. I'm talking about if I were to eat a higher fat, low carb meal at, let's say, 6 o'clock, and then 3 hours later go to bed versus a high carb meal at 6 o'clock and 3 hours later go to bed. Very different heart rate response to those two meals for me.
So if I do what I've noticed was if I do the high carb, it has to be low protein. It can be higher fat, but it has to be low protein is what I've noticed. So when I combine, I don't know if there's anything to this, I couldn't tell you, but for me personally, if I combine, just like you said, the protein with the carbohydrates, it does mess me up. I don't know why, but my resting heart rate gets even worse. And you don't consume alcohol, right?
No.
Yeah. So neither do I. And when I have alcohol, I am ruined.
Yeah. I think that's pretty universal, that alcohol really ruins particularly deep sleep, right? You get a huge spike in resting heart rate variability decreases, and deep sleep is almost non-existent. If even small consumptions of alcohol, a glass of wine, most people are going to see some, if they track their sleep, and to the degree that we do, I think most people are going to see some hugely negative impacts on a lot of sleep markers.
Oh yeah. We had Cal on the podcast, on Sunday, and we were drinking on the podcast. I had scotch, man. I haven't been drunk in years, right? Brooker, since you've been here, I haven't been drunk.
Yeah.
Right. So probably 2 years, I have not been drunk, man. I got pretty toasted. I had 4 big scotches on that podcast and it was over at what? 2 o'clock.
Yeah,
3 o'clock.
That podcast in total was about over 3 hours. I mean, not all of it recorded, but
yeah. And bro, my sleep was a nightmare. I woke up at 1 a.m., didn't get back to sleep until 3:30, and then finally got back to sleep, had to wake up, go to work at 5:30. And then that whole next day, I had acid reflux. That next night, I went to sleep at 8:30 p.m. I went to sleep, woke up at 5:30 in the morning. So I got a lot of sleep, horrible deep sleep, horrible REM sleep.
Yeah.
My sleep score was like a 79 and my readiness was a 79. My sleep score should have been in the 90s.
Yeah.
Couldn't,
with that many hours. Yeah. It's, no, that's why I completely avoid it. I completely avoid it for that reason. There's no, I mean, to me, especially when you're busy and want to have a lot of things you want to get done, there's no good time to lose a night of sleep.
Yeah.
It just isn't. And now you were negatively impacted for 2 nights, right? You didn't just lose one, you lost 2. So, but that's, athletes, college professional athletes, they got to understand that. And that's why you encourage them to get things like Oura rings or Whoop bands or whatever technology to look at how their lifestyle impacts, or negatively impacts in this case, sleep and recovery. I think those are good lessons.
Yeah.
Well, mate, just quickly, just to go back, have you got any did you ever get any blood work done, like hormonal profile stuff and looked at low carb influence?
I looked, not hormonal, but just like a metabolic panel, like a CBC, right? Where you're looking at triglycerides, cholesterol. And I did, on the, I'm not qualified to speak on this, and this is a huge topic of debate amongst a lot of people that are much smarter than me, but is cholesterol levels, right? I know this, when you're actively losing body fat, cholesterol will be higher, right? You'll see those fats in the blood.
Because it's in the blood, yeah.
It's in the blood, right? And so when we're dropping, so anytime you go on a cutting diet, you may see an elevated cholesterol. And I think you see further elevations, at least for me, when I was on a all meat diet, higher saturated fat diet. Now, the question is that problematic? Is that worrisome? again, I'm not in that debate. There is a huge debate, and certainly you can find those debates online. I don't seem to be too worried. So to answer your question, Brooke, my CBC, the only thing that was off the charts was my cholesterol. So I had higher total cholesterol, I had higher LDL cholesterol. I also had higher HDL, which is good, right? But the LDL was really high, the total was really high. Obviously, I exercise, I watch what I eat, but on that carnivore low carb diet, I did see quite an increase in total and LDL cholesterol.
Yeah. So one thing I will say, now I'm a kind of a weird cat, as you already know. I haven't worn deodorant in like 6 years, but I don't smell. Yeah. I don't smell. I do not smell. I'll shower twice a day, 3 times a day, whatever. I don't smell. When I did the carnivore diet, bro, I stunk. Like it was like every Italian gene that came in, and every stereotype that you could possibly think of, like with the stinky Italian, bro, it was brutal. I'd do a podcast and the room would smell. I'm like, holy shit. So I don't know what that has to do with it. And now I talked to one of my friends who he took some kind of blood test for some food allergy test, which I think so many of these food sensitivity tests are bullshit. I think they're terrible. He took one and it said one of the things that was bad for him was saturated fat from red meat specifically, or something like that. So, but red meat was very good for him. He responded well to red meat, but responded poorly to the saturated fat in red meat. So what he would do is he would boil the red meat to drain all the fat. And that's how he would eat his red meat. He'd do everything he could to like sift out the fat from the red meat. And he said all his body odor went away just from taking away saturated fat from his diet, and saturated fat associated with red meat. That he took that away, and all his body odor went away. He said, Mike, I've gone on 5-mile hikes, 10-mile hikes, and not smelled at all. So I was thinking in the back of my head, with no blood work, no nothing, was maybe the body odor had something to do with the LDL influence. I don't know, the HDL to LDL profile, but I don't know if there's anything.
I don't know either. I've never heard that. No, it'd be interesting to see, because there are red meats that are lower in fat, right? I mean, like if you do it like elk, venison, boar. I mean, these are very lean. Ostrich is although it
is that a red meat?
Well, it is. It does.
Ostrich is amazing. As a red meat,
it is a red meat, Brooke. I'm not mistaken. It's a red meat.
No, it's a red meat. Yeah,
but it's
super lean. It's very gamey.
Macronutrient profile like chicken.
Yes.
Elk is very similar. A lot of the wild boar you get is very similar. So I wonder, it'd be interesting to hear. I've never heard that. I have no idea why that would be, but it'd be interesting next time you try it to go on like to get more of kind of these lower fat game meats and see, if that happens again.
I noticed the same when I went vegan for a little while, Mike.
Where you started smelling like shit?
No, I stopped smelling.
Dude, that's what I mean.
Yeah. And then I knew, because that was when I weren't showering much. And then when I was in Argentina and then I started eating meat again, all of a sudden I couldn't get away with it anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know what the connection is, but that was the only downside that I had from the carnivore diet, was I just started smelling. I'm like, oh my God, I'm the smelly kid. Like it was brutal. I couldn't bear, my girlfriend couldn't come near me. It was so bad.
Interesting. No, I've never heard that.
Yeah. But I'm hopping back on that sumbitch. So
yeah, who gives up?
Yeah, I'm getting, so I'm like you, where, I mean, throughout college, 4 years of college, I weighed my food every single meal. And, I fluctuated between like a 40, 30, 30, or, maybe 35 sort of thing. I was very, very strict with everything that I did, but it was always within those zone was what I responded to pretty well. And I got lean. I was strong. I was fast. I had great recovery. And I'd set my alarm at 4:30 in the morning and have a protein shake made the night before, chug the protein shake, and go right back to sleep, right? Like I was very, very regimented. If I want to be, I can do that. The two best times the 2 times I've looked the best and felt the best was doing that. But I was also on a ton of stimulants then too, and the carnivore diet.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to do the carnivore diet and only eat vegetables. Like I'll have my Brussels sprouts in the morning with my bacon and stuff like that. I love that. But I'm really interested to see this time how much energy I get by keeping the vegetables in, or if it's really just stemming from me being good with just the meat.
So what did a typical day look like for you as far as how many meals and what did you eat?
Woke up, I'd have 3 eggs and 3 to 6 strips of bacon. And towards the end, I was putting some cheese and some liver that I cooked in the bacon grease into my eggs. And it was the only way I could eat the friggin' liver. I hate
liver's not real palatable. I mean,
it tastes it. For those of you that haven't tried liver, imagine you going to take a bite of your steak and it's like one of those bad bites of steak. Like it's like a real well done, like, oh, let me just spit this out. It just doesn't taste right. That's a good piece of liver, right? Is that an accurate description?
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends how you cook it, but to me, it's just the taste of it. Because I'll get a pound of I forget what it's called, but it's essentially a blend of beef, heart, and liver in a 1 pound package, and I'll just cook that up. And so obviously you can now I'll also eat 1 pound of beef heart. I'll get a 1 pound pack of just heart, and heart is not bad, but liver is it's got a taste. It's got a pretty strong taste. And so I'll combine that. I'll get that. If I buy that, I'll get that combined, 85% beef with 15% heart and liver mix. And I'll make sure that when I'm doing that, if I'm just more of a meat based and a little bit of vegetables, I'll make sure that I get some liver and some heart and just some different organ meats in there. Kidney, they throw some kidney in it.
See, well. I've done the research on it, and the only difference is if you're strict carnivore, you're not getting the micronutrients from just meat. That's why you got to have the organs.
Right.
It's just a little more dense.
As opposed to just muscle meats, right? As opposed to just eating sirloin steaks.
Yeah. So I mean, that's the only reason I had the liver, because I wasn't supplementing with anything else because I really wanted to try this out. So I'd eat probably maybe pound or 2 pounds of liver a week. Right. Mm-hmm. So I was eating enough, I think.
Yeah, sure.
And then for lunch, depending on what time I was out of class, I'd probably eat once or twice a day. That was it. Sometimes I'd have three meals, but then I'd have, 2 pounds of steak, and that was it. I'd grill it, put it on the barbecue, put it on the grill, and be set. And I'd have that with salt, pepper, and I'd drink seltzer. Lime flavored seltzer. That was my cheat. You know what I mean? Like that was when all you have is meat. Like, man, that was tasty.
Yeah.
That was it.
There's no doubt.
And I got all my stuff from like Butcher Box. I'd order, $500 worth of food every single month from Butcher Box. And then I'd go to the poultry farm down the road and get eggs. That was it.
Yeah. It's pretty easy.
Yeah. It was cheap too. I saved so much money.
I think you're right. When that's all you're eating, what those meals cost a little more, but when you look at it throughout the course of a month, I think it is very comparable to what most people would spend on regular groceries. Did you do any fasting during the time, prolonged fasting?
Yeah. So it was easy for me to fast when I still haven't eaten. It's 1 p.m. right now, and I haven't eaten since yesterday at 1:30. Right. So I'm at a 24-hour fast. I didn't even realize. But a fast for me is cake now because of me not eating from 5 p.m. on. So, sure. and me working early. So I think the longest fast I did was 3 days on the carnivore diet. Which
intentionally?
Yeah. Well, okay. The 1 day was unintentional. I was like, all right, let's stretch this out and see how far I could go. And then I did 2 days. My brother did a 6-day fast. He went ham, and he was fine. He was
Yeah,
perfect.
I did a 5-day water fast right before the season started in early October.
How'd you feel?
Great. I mean, by day 4 and 5, there's no lot of good energy, good focus, not hungry. I still worked out.
That's one thing I won't do. I won't work out because the whole point of me working out is I want to build muscle, but I'd be burning it at that point, right?
Well, I think you can be smart within targeted with it. So I worked out on like days 2 and 4, and then on day 5 after I got the meal on me. But just the strength training is a stimulus for muscle growth, and so you can increase protein synthesis just by a targeted strength training session. That doesn't mean a 2-hour strength session, but you can go in there and do 3 sets of 3 on back squat and 3 sets of 3 on shoulder press and 3 sets of 3 of chin-ups, weighted chin-ups.
Where are you getting your essential amino acids from? Because they're not stored in fat.
Well, I mean, when you're fasting, you can break down muscle, right?
So you're breaking down muscle to build muscle?
What I'm saying is, if you're on a prolonged fast, that's the battle, is to stay away from catabolism, right? Is what you're speaking of. So now there is an argument that all resources should go towards kind of rejuvenation at this point during a fast. But there is some evidence of sparing some little muscle, and I think it's different with different ages. I mean, I think if you're used to a low carb diet and you produce ketones fairly easily and you're metabolically flexible, I think that we've done bod pods on older people. When I say older, 40s, 50s, 60s, on people who've done fast and they've lost a pound or 2 of muscle. And granted, bod pod isn't, I don't know if that's the gold standard for these things. But there is some, I think, with some targeted strength work, not to failure, not maximal, but you can stave off some of that catabolism by just including some low volume, heavier, intense work. And look, that's like I look at fasting as like, that's part of our evolution, right?
Sure.
And so during evolution, when we fasted, we still had to do things. We still had to function. So I don't look at that as I look at that as a normal part of evolution that we should all be okay in. A 24-hour fast or 48-hour fast. I had plenty of energy on days of 4s and 5s, so I got a little workout in on, and I felt better. Again, if you go train for an hour and a half on day 4 of a fast, you're probably putting yourself in a bad position.
Right.
But lifting some heavy objects, during a fast, a couple sets of deadlifts, I don't think that's problematic as far as from a catabolic perspective.
If you look at some different civilizations that still hunt, I mean, they still maintain a very high muscle mass. And of course, there's a genetic component to it too, but they're not all rakes. Not all of them.
I don't know. Some of those people that I see that are hunting civilizations that are not like, I don't know, first world type things, man, I don't want to look like them.
Well, obviously not.
You know what I mean? Like those are all skinny.
So you don't want to wear white.
Like, it's I don't want to be a skinny guy. Like I want to be healthy. I want to be in shape, but I want to be muscular. Right. So my thought process is, why am I fasting? Well, there's a couple of reasons why I fast. One is a cellular autophagy, the alleged cellular autophagy, I should say.
Yeah.
That's it's supposed to renew cells and it's supposed to clear things out. It's supposed to reduce the amount of cancer cells and all these wonderful benefits. You're increasing growth hormone by this day and all these things, like maybe. Okay, so hey, I won't eat for that. Why not? 2, I do believe in giving your system a rest, right? The whole eating every 3 hours, your pancreas is doing a lot of work. It's doing a lot of work all day long because you want to keep that insulin as steady as possible, right? Well, I mean, to give your body, your organs, that kind of break from digestion is, I think it's important. Also, 3, the mental focus that it takes and the commitment, right? The suffering that you're that you're intentionally putting yourself through to, I don't know. It's like one of those like, hey, time to bear down. Hey, you're not eating, bro. People in the Holocaust did this for months. Like, grow a set. Let's go. You know what I mean? Like, you could suffer a little bit. Like, how much can I push myself? For the same reason why Brooker, you stayed in the sauna for an hour just to see how long you could stay in there, or the same reason you're doing the Ironman. Then on top of that, the mental clarity that you get. I mean, I talked to people and they said that when they did a 14-day fast, they didn't really kick in until day 7 to 10. And it was like they were synced in, like they were locked in.
Yeah, one of my clients didn't even want to stop after 14 days.
Yeah.
And ended up dragging it out to 19.
What did they consume in the fast? Water and electrolytes?
Yep.
Yeah.
You need electrolytes because otherwise you're getting a headache hardcore after 2 days, 3 days.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think you got to be, obviously, I wouldn't recommend people just start water fasting without someone guiding it, because there's, electrolyte status has to be maintained. I mean, there's some, it's not just, hey, stop eating, right? I mean, it's, certainly I think people could run into problems if they do that. So having someone guide them through it, a doctor, whatever, I think is smart to do. Depending on how long you're going. I wasn't worried with 5 days for me of running that problem, but certainly a 14-day fast. Now you're talking about a whole different level of fasting and some things that some protocols probably need to be put in place.
I mean, there's some amazing stuff that comes from, I think his name's Dr. Fung. He's from Toronto. And
Yeah.
he wrote a lot. Yeah. And I mean, he's got claims of reversing diabetes and stuff like that through his clinic. So I don't know.
I think it's you can't call fasting a fad because it's been around for thousands of years, right? I mean, it's documented. But I think people are bringing more of it to light. A guy named Daniel Pompa, Pompa, has a good book. In fact, might be around here somewhere, but he's got like a 7-week fasting protocol for those who've never fasted. Week 1, you're going to do this, and it kind of culminates in a 5-day fast at week 7. I think and he elucidates a lot of the positive benefits from fasting. So that's a great book to look at if people are just trying to familiarize. Jason Fung, I've seen him, Dr. Fung put a lot of information as well.
I read, I think it was Dr. Fung that I read something in regards to one of his cleansing routines where, do you know what gua sha is?
No.
So gua sha is scraping, instrument assisted soft tissue massage. It's like the original Chinese version.
Yeah.
One thing that I read was he'll have them do garlic, maybe activated charcoal, and niacin, right? Like I forget how much niacin while in a sauna, and then also scraping and removing like superficial toxins. Have you heard of that?
Yeah, I have. In fact, it might have been like Ben Greenfield podcast, one of the podcasts I heard him discuss. I have never done that. I mean, some of the cleansing stuff to me, I just don't. I haven't studied enough. I haven't looked at enough. I haven't tried it. I don't know. We do have a liver that handles a lot of that, right? I mean, and so I haven't gotten into many of the cleansing protocols. So no, I'm not as familiar with those.
Yeah, when people talk to me about cleanses, I immediately say bullshit. Like, what are we cleansing? Toxins. All right, list the toxins, please. But I remember even in high school, when kids had to like pass drug tests for like marijuana, what do they say? Oh, get niacin. It'll flush everything out of your system. And drink water, get on the treadmill and drink niacin and take niacin. So the niacin thing kind of resonated with me a little bit as far as, I don't know, some kind of purification or some kind of cleansing. I don't know why, I don't know how, but it for whatever reason it did. So Pat Cole and I actually tried it. We didn't do the activated charcoal, but we did the garlic and we did the niacin. And then we brought Jade, like a natural tool, into the sauna with us. And we went to this place called the BRC Spa. It's a Russian bathhouse. And this place, I mean, you haven't been to a sauna until you've been to this place. Like, it is an old school spot where they have these brick oven heaters. It is insanely hot. Like, it might be, it's easily 220, 240 degrees. It's incredible there. It's phenomenal. So we went in there, and they have a cold tub that's like 32 degrees. And it's constantly spinning. It's actually 32 degrees. It is the coldest tub I've ever been in. And we went there, and we just started, you know, we did it a couple of times. I noticed absolutely nothing, except I got kind of a headache and I got like an upset stomach from it. But I'm not gonna, I just stopped doing it. Like, even the scraping and stuff like that. I don't know. That's even an acupuncture thing. Like, you want to get all the toxins out by scraping. Yeah. I don't know. What
and that'd be my question: is what toxins? And are these toxins? I mean, I think you can make an argument that we all have toxins in us from the environment, right? Whether we, regardless of how judicious we are with food intake and what we do and how we live. I think that environmental toxins certainly we probably all have. But exactly, you know, with these protocols, that's my question: is okay, what toxins am I eliminating? How should I feel? How do I know that I've eliminated them? Other than, I feel really good. I've felt really good getting out of saunas and cold tubs before. I don't know if it's because I released toxins or I just had, you know, it probably was a parasympathetic arousal of some sort, nervous system response. Who knows what it was? But so I'm like you. I haven't really gotten into. I've never tried, so I shouldn't say one thing bad or good. I just have never tried it.
Yeah, don't waste your time.
What kind of protocols do you do with the hot and cold, Aaron?
I like, if I have time and if I have access, at home I used to do hot and cold showers, kind of the old contrast showers. I really like that. Or just simply ending a shower with 60 seconds as cold as I can. I really like that. But if I have time, I love a cardio session followed by a 25-30 minute sauna session followed by a 10-minute cold tub.
Nice.
That to me that's a perfect morning. If I could drop a perfect morning, cup of coffee, a cardio session, a sauna session, a cold tub. That's about as good as life gets for me. But I do feel better now. Why is that? I don't know. I mean, physiologically, what's occurring? I don't know if we know. I just, I do feel better. Most people report those same. They like, most people like saunas. They may not enjoy it in the midst of the sauna session, but most people just feel better. And there's a lot of research on saunas, right? And Rhonda Patrick has put out a ton of research, but I do think those, these, call it hormetic stress, whatever you want to call it. I do think there's benefits to being cold certain times, to being warm, to being hungry. I think all those things are all things that we've had to certainly in the past 1,000 years ago experience probably on a daily basis, but things that I think we're a comfortable society, right? When it's hot, we take off a layer, turn on the air conditioner. When we're cold, we put on a layer. When we're hungry, we eat. We very rarely do we kind of sit in that discomfort and grow through that. And so I think that's important.
Goes back to, I always now am going to think of you as Sisyphus. You know the Greek mythology of Sisyphus?
No, I
don't.
The
guy that pushes up the big boulder up the hill.
Right. Yeah, right.
The never-ending hill.
Yep, no doubt.
Finds joy and beauty in it. Have you ever done multiple rounds of the hot and cold?
I have, yeah. Not as much sauna as hot tub, cold tub, but I've done about 15 minutes sauna and 5 minutes cold tub and about 3 rounds of that. I like that too. That's just that just becomes logistically, time wise, and getting out of the cold. I got to dry off. I got to get back. So logistically, that's a little bit tougher to do, but particularly if you're in a public area. But one thing I don't have, but I want to have is a sauna in my house to even in the wintertime, going out in the cold for 5 minutes, getting in the sauna for 10, going back out in the cold for 5. I think those are things that metabolically, I think that certainly that are beneficial. It's like everything else. It's the dose is the poison, right? Not the stimuli itself, but how often we do it, how long we do it, how frequent do we do it, that can cause problems.
Well, the Scandinavians love that kind of stuff, mate.
They do.
Yeah,
they do.
They even love getting pissed up in the sauna too with the boys and then going to jump out in the snow.
Mm-hmm.
That's like a regular thing for them. So yeah, there's a lot there, mate.
Yeah. What at the bathhouse, I talked to, there's a whole bunch of like Hasidic Jews that go there, and they always end up going up to Canada, and they have these saunas all outside in Canada, right by the river, and they call them innings. So you do as many innings as you can when you sit in the sauna for as long as you possibly can. Then you run out and you jump in the cold river, and you stay there as long as you can. Then you go in the sauna as long as you can, and you try to get, a 9-inning baseball game, right? Like you try to get as many innings as possible. Then that night you just go and you feast. Like, and it's really, really, but that's what I do when I go to this place. It's just a chlorinated pool, but it's incredible. It's bro, I feel, and I'm not in that 32-degree cold tub for longer than, my goal is 10 breaths. That's how brutal I am. And then they have a freezing cold shower that might be like 40 degrees that I just stay under for as long as I possibly can to wash all the chlorine off. But then I go right back in the sauna. Man, it is phenomenal. I leave there as long as I end on cold. If I end on hot, I'm exhausted. If I end on cold, it's like I have a lightning bolt of energy.
You're energized. I find that too. If you end on cold, for me, it's the same. I think that's a personal preference to a large degree. And that's another conversation, but there are athletes, these high, real tightly wound, wired athletes just dislike the cold.
I despise the cold.
Dislike it.
Yeah.
It makes me, I don't think anyone sits in cold and goes, wow, that feels great the first time. But I mean, they feel worse 24 hours later because they sat in the cold tub. Whereas if I end on cold, I feel great. I have energy. I feel great. I think it's a personal preference. I think it depends on a lot of things. I mean, if we looked at heart rate variability before and after, I think you see different responses. Some people, that's a stressor. The cold is. For some people, they get out and they're a little more relaxed. And so I think it's individual variation, but I'm similar to you that ending on cold is how I feel the best when I end those sessions.
Yeah. See, I hate the cold. I avoid it at all costs. I'll go in the sauna anytime, any day of the week. The cold tub, I need to like muster up the courage to go in. It's like a phobia. I hate the cold that much, but when I know when I come out of it, I feel better. That's the only reason I go in. But getting in it, it's like painful for me.
Yeah,
you need to stay in the sauna until you're crawling out, and then you're searching for it.
That's true. I mean, that's true. When you're so hot,
it
feels good. And the cold, I like the cold for. Again, I don't think anyone enjoys it. What I like it for the discipline of the breathing.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Because you know how it is in the cold. It's just we take a breath and hold our breath, but can you quiet your mind, and can you relax, and can you breathe in the cold? And pretty soon the cold is not so bad. But that's, most of us get that sympathetic response, and just breathing rate goes up, and we hold our breath, and just the ability to sit in it and breathe. I think that's the test I like for myself. Yeah,
and also I'm with you 100%, but for me, there's something else too. It's like, it doesn't matter how you feel about it. You're going to do it anyway. And then what's the ripple effects of that? I mean, this is like, we're doing a full circle now, because I mean, you were saying at the beginning how you love to just do things because there's an element of suffering involved, but that's also because that generates good momentum into other things that's going on for you in your life too. Right. And for me, that's a big point of it too. So yeah, I don't know. I love it. And I mean, so many people now are like, oh, you don't need the cold. The cold isn't that good, to do with injuries in particular.
Sure.
But I think that's legit. I think they're hot. Like, getting injured guys go in the sauna, you're getting way more bang for your buck. But you're not doing it so much necessarily just for the body. You're doing it way more for the mind, and that prolonged exposure and really narrowing and focusing your attention on your body and maintaining a good cadence of breath, that's doing wonders for you.
100%. Agree.
What time do you got to get out of here?
We've got some things this afternoon here, so You tell me.
Wow.
So he needs to boogie.
Yep. Time to bounce. We've had you on for an hour, bro. I could have you on. I didn't even get into the questions that I wanted to friggin' ask you.
Yeah, me neither. I got 3 of them here too.
I want to ask you about the program, everything that you were doing there, but I guess maybe we'll have to have you on another time.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I'll give you one thing that like I said, Cam does great work with the speed and the 1080 sprint data we get. One thing that I've been excited about for 3 years is and we can talk about it on a future podcast, is the body composition analyses we do with our team.
So
what do you use? DEXA?
We use a 5-way fractionation model, which involves 22 measures, breadth measures to measure the weight of the skeleton, the skeletal weight, because the weight of the skeleton dictates the amount of muscle mass a frame can hold. Once we reach those upper physiological limits for skeletal weight, the individual can continue to put on weight, but it's going to be adipose, right? It's not going to be lean muscle mass. This occurred to me 3 or 4 years ago when I started this process down this road. It's also one of the reasons I'm on a Skype call every Sunday morning. But we use a 5-way fractionation model, which was presented. This is presented from a cadaver study done in late 70s, early 80s. I think the guy named Dr. Drinkwater was involved in that. But we look at breadths, 22 measures in total, breadths, girths, muscle girths, and skin folds. Combination of all 3. And we really, as opposed to a bod pod where we're getting lean body mass and fat mass, and in a bod pod, as you guys well know, fat mass is body fat. Lean body mass refers to everything that's not fat mass. Mm-hmm. Skin, bone, organs, muscle. However, skin, bone, organs don't act on the lever system, the skeletal system. Only lean muscle mass does. So we're able to determine with our athletes the weight of their skeleton, their current level of muscle mass, and approximately how much muscle mass their frame can hold.
I don't buy that.
This has been around, like I said, for almost 40 years. It's been done in Argentina for the last 20 years on Olympic athletes. We've got data. And I can show you at some point, Mike, that we've got data on optimal ratios of muscle mass to bone mass for sprinters, field hockey, swimming and diving, rugby. So these are validated studies. Now, it hasn't been used in Europe and the United States very much because it requires 22 measures. Many of these are found in the ISAC coursework you do when you get certified ISAC, but some are not. So there's for someone to measure this, it involves certification of the measure. It involves algorithms that were presented in a thesis years ago by Deborah Kerr, who was at, I think, Simon Fraser University in Vancouver at the time. And again, these are things, and we can go deeper into this. These are things I ran across 3 or 4 years ago. We did them. We performed them on the whole New York Giant football team. Everyone at the Senior Bowl in 2019 here at Indiana University with our team. And I'll show you guys kind of maybe off the podcast, just the data that we're getting. Very interesting. Not only muscle to bone ratios, but shoulder to hip ratios for sprinting athletes, shoulder to hip ratios for your linemen or rugby athletes. In other words, width of the biochromial width to the biocrystal width, the width of the shoulders to the width of the pelvis, and those ratios. And we found some interesting things just with NFL players and college players on some of our fastest athletes and what those ratios are in some of our fastest athletes.
I could buy the anthropometrics in that sense, but as far as skeletal mass and optimal, I guess optimal is the word, but the amount of muscle that someone's capable of putting on, I don't buy that for a second, because I mean, look at every friggin' bodybuilder. Now, obviously,
but those are certainly. So the average Caucasian can put on, we think, can hold 5.0 to 5.2 pounds of muscle per pound of skeletal weight. Bodybuilders have not been documented 6.6.
Yeah.
That's supra physiological. We're talking about physiological limits. Now, bodybuilders also have tendon ruptures and a whole host of things going on too when you supra physiologically gain more muscle than you were put on earth to have, right? We're talking about, so these studies, there's meat industry studies on cow carcasses of muscle to bone ratios. We've got muscle bone ratios of kangaroos, of squirrels, bats to fly. Like this isn't me. These are studies done for 40 years. Mm-hmm. And I'm happy to send you, but we're talking about physiological, not super physiological.
Okay.
Physiological constraints. And think about it. Logically, if our skeletal frame isn't as large, we can't hold the muscle. And I'll tell you how this started was one of our players in New York who has probably the most muscular lower body I've ever seen. Also had and he's not a lineman, and he's a skilled player, had the third largest ankle circumference of any player on our entire roster. So I started thinking, okay, if you put my skeletal frame in his body, there's no way he can build the calves, the quads, the hamstrings that he has now. There's no way, because the skeletal system will not support that. And the only reason I measured was because we were doing compression stockings for a West Coast trip. So I started researching several articles from muscle to bone ratio and anthropometrics in the 90s. And I kept coming across a common name, a guy named Francis Holway, who Brooke I didn't know at the time, was in Argentina, Buenos Aires. And it took me another 6 months to track down Francis. When I finally did, we Skyped, and now this has been 3 years of just, and he's brilliant. And this is kind of his life's work, but he's got measures from every Olympic athlete from every sport for the last 20 years on muscle to bone ratios, anthropometric characteristics, thigh length, femur length to tibial length, hip width to shoulder width. Boy, I learned something new. Every Sunday I learn something new when I talk to him. It's incredible data. And in football, in American football, we're always making some predictions, right? He's a 220-pound tight end or defensive end. Can he be 255 pounds? Does he have capacity? And even in the NFL, we make those predictions of guys coming out of college. So I just kind of got disenchanted with I don't like to work in gray areas much. Like, yeah, I've seen a guy like him. I think he can gain 30 pounds. There's got to be a better way. There's got to be a more objective way to predict how much muscle mass a frame can hold. We know that you can hold weight indiscriminately. Like there is no theoretical maximum for the amount of body fat you can hold, but there are theoretical maximums for the amount of muscle mass a skeletal frame can support. Because muscles are attached to tendons pull on bones. And so interesting stuff that, maybe next time that we can dig a little deeper on.
Sounds good. It's always a pleasure, mate.
Yeah. Way to leave us hanging on that one, bro.
That's just so you have me back again sometime.
All right, let me get off.